Are you afraid of dying?
Can we ask that again?
Okay, yeah. You afraid of dying?
I think I'm more afraid of dying now than I was like ever before. I feel like if you had asked me like a year ago, 2 years ago, I would say no. But now I feel like I'm more scared of dying because I have more to live for. No?
That makes sense.
Huh?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what have you found that's like to live for, I guess, and that changed your perspective on it? Because clearly, like, something would have to be found.
I think the more I managed like my depression and my anxiety and like everything like that, and put everything at a balance and like express my feelings a little bit more into the world, like I felt like, oh, like life is livable. And I started like living for myself a little bit too, just like doing things that I wanted to pursue in life, whether it be like career wise or just like little hobbies, just doing more things for myself instead of like living for other people, you know? I feel like my change in perspective kind of happened when I think I just kind of had like a really bad mental break. And I was just like, what am I doing? And like the things that I would usually do to make myself feel better, it wasn't working. And I really had to like sit with myself and have a conversation with myself and be like, what are we really doing here? And once I figured out what I actually want to do with life and what I kind of want to pursue, maybe not like forever, but like in the immediate future and timeline of things, I was like, okay, maybe I can live for that. Maybe I can live for myself for a change instead of like just living on the wants and needs of other people.
Yeah, living on borrowed time.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Yeah. I think I had a similar experience in terms of like me starting to live for myself again.
Yeah.
Because I think before I don't know when this happened. Probably after I tore my ACL, because my first love was for soccer, and after that, I think I kind of became like a very bitter person. Like I had music, and that was fun, but like I didn't really like the people in my social life that much. I was unhappy because like I didn't get into my dream college, so I was just living at home for a while.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was stuck. And then I had like a near-death experience. But looking back on it, I don't know how near-death it was. I think I would have survived. I took like one too many pills of like a painkiller, and I was like, oh my god. But then there was that electrocution one. That was really bad.
I feel like that.
The electrocution one, oh my goodness.
That sounds a little worse.
Yeah. I electrocuted myself. And I thought I was going to die. Just sitting in the dark, underwear for a good like 15 minutes thinking about if I was going to make it or not. I swear I saw the light, but I think that was just the execution.
Yeah. It was the electricity.
I saw the light. Just the electric current. After that, I was like, okay, so what? Well, especially during COVID, like the job I was working made me super unhappy. I was working at a country club for a bunch of rich white people that were old, you know? And so definitely my place of work didn't make me feel valued at all. I wasn't feeling like I was contributing to anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's how the album came about too, the first album. Because I realized like you have all this outside stuff going on with something that I can have complete control of, you know, because I felt very out of control.
Yeah. I mean, I think I understand that a lot. What's funny, I think you saying that just made me realize this right now, though. But when I was a kid, and honestly, up until like high school, I felt like sometimes I couldn't think. Like everything was like blank. And I would go through periods of that where thinking on it now, I was probably like dissociating for like long periods of time. and I was just blanking out, and I was just like empty, and I never understood why. And I feel like that's because I was basically living on like autopilot. Like I was just living just to like be there and
just
to
went through
exist.
the motions.
Yeah. And I was doing stuff that I wasn't really like passionate about or like that I wanted to do at all. Like I was in the medical field, and like obviously having like traditional Asian parents and everything, that's kind of what they wanted out of my life and everything. And I was just like, yeah, sure, like I'm good at it. So that's what I just kept on doing. But I think once I dipped my toes a little bit into like the creative field and like realizing the potential that I have there and as a person, like my mind became a lot more clear, and I felt like I was making decisions and not just like going through the motions,
Sounds like you took back control of your life.
Yeah, well, I knew that happened, but like I guess I just didn't pinpoint that moment,
Yeah. I was watching a short podcast with Thames, and then she was basically explaining how she was a very bitter person before, and how she hated the world, but then she made her own, like surrounded herself with the people that she really loved, and like create her world with music and her sound. But she feels very isolated and alienated a lot of the time. I think I definitely related to that. Yeah. To where, like, my entire life I felt very distant from other people. Like, I was by myself a lot.
Yeah.
During my childhood, just like playing with Legos, doing music, stuff like that. And then especially when I moved to LA, like, just me and my music, and I would hang out with Isaiah, like, here and there. But
yeah.
Especially being in the circles I were in, like, I was so fresh to LA.
Yeah.
And for a long time, even before I moved to LA, I think I definitely hated the world. And I remember my sister had told me, that she was like, why are you always so, like, I was quick to anger, I was very irritable all the time, and I didn't know why. And during COVID, I started reading, like, self-care books, Psycho-Cybernetics being one of them, and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People being the other one. Those 2 books definitely changed my life. And Psycho-Cybernetics, most of it has to do with self-image, and I realized I was like holding on to this negative self-image of myself because of how people had treated me in the past, or how people treat me at my job. And it's like, just because people perceive you or treat you a certain way doesn't mean that you have to agree with them and also think that you have to be a certain way too.
Yeah.
And once that clicked for me, it's like, oh, everything's a perception thing.
Yeah.
And it's never too late to evolve your perception and to change, because that's the like fundamental thing of nature is evolution. So
yeah,
are you going to be stuck in this old mode of thinking that's not even serving you and is ultimately destructive? Or are you going to take back your power?
Yeah.
I think once I started to take back my power, it's completely different. And you view everything differently too.
It's funny because perspective is definitely like a huge thing, and I feel like I had a similar experience, but it's different. Like, I think growing up I didn't hate the world, I hated myself. And I was lonely like in my childhood, like up until I was like 10, and then after that, like I was always around like a bunch of people, and I had like a good amount of friends throughout like middle school, high school, whatever, and it was nice. Like, I enjoyed their company and everything, but like you, I still felt very like distant from people. I just felt like they were on one island and I was on the other, even though we're in the same space, and even though like everything seemed fine with me from like the outside, but like internally I feel like I had such like a negative perspective on life, just because like I don't think I liked the person that I was at the time, and I think I took my power back in a different way, where I was able to shift my perspective and able to kind of give myself a little bit more like leeway and like start to love myself a little bit more. As like cheesy, corny as that sounds, but
It's necessary. I don't think it's corny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that I work on a lot too. You know, being kinder to myself, because I think I'm like the hardest person on myself.
Same. I feel that.
And it's necessary too, but it's like a double-edged sword to where. To where, at what point does it become destructive?
Yeah.
And I think it could get destructive really quick, especially for me.
Same.
But something that Jeremy told me a long time ago was like, and this is mainly in terms of creativity, you know, judging your old work and being critical of yourself, which is the majority of what we do, right?
Yeah.
He's like, as long as you are noticing those things and thinking about what you could have done better, like, don't beat yourself up about the past, because you didn't have that lens before, but now you do, and you know what you would do differently. So as long as you're evolving, then, you know, that part should never stop. That's something that Ricky had told me too, to where like that imposter syndrome, that like self-doubt never goes away.
Yeah.
And for someone like him, or for him to be saying that, it's like, oh, you know, it must be true. And that's what drives us forward.
I feel like that line between like criticism to make myself better and like criticism where it is detrimental to my well-being, it's like a super fine line for me too. I feel like being like a perfectionist and like having like OCD about certain things, like combined with just me being like a very particular person, it makes for like great things, but also very like, all right, like sometimes you gotta chill out a little bit, let things be in the slightest, you know. But I think you helped me out a lot with that, actually. Like, I remember one of like the earliest moments where we were like having a conversation about something, and I think I called myself stupid just because, like, it wasn't anything serious, but I was just like, fuck, you know, I fucked up on something. And you're like, no negative self-talk in the chat, or like something along the lines of that, right? And like, I didn't take it that seriously at that point. I was just like, oh, like, yeah, okay. But I think as our like friendship progressed and like I kind of understood what you meant by that a little bit more, it stays in like the back of my head now. I'm like, he's right.
Yeah. It's because it's, even if you say that jokingly, like,
Yeah. You're like putting it
repeated,
out.
Yeah, it's a repeated
yeah.
affirmation. I believe in affirmation. I do affirmations every single day.
Yeah. It's a good thing to do. I don't. I should, but I don't.
I do an abundance one. I used to do a beauty one. I don't feel like I need the beauty. Well, I might say that one. I'm not going to say that beauty anymore. I don't do it anymore. I do the abundance one instead of the beauty one. Let me clarify.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, let me hold on. Like, I just replaced it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's still the Wizard Liz, though.
Yeah.
She said, I am abundant. I said, I am abundant.
I'm not gonna lie, like, I think before I started like reading like specifically like self-help books and like, you know, getting into that sphere a little bit more, I thought affirmations and like all that stuff was just kind of like corny and just like I just kind of like blew it off, whatever, right? But the more like I delve into that stuff and like understand the reasoning as to why and like how much of an impact that can make on like your general mindset, just putting things out into existence, I guess, or into the air, or just in the back of your head, whatever it may be, like, it's actually very important, and it's a very useful thing that can quite literally change your life. So shit, yeah,
It's really important. I think people just kind of have to find what works for them in terms of their spiritual journey.
Yeah.
So for me, I was listening to a bunch of podcasts, and then I stopped listening to the podcasts, and then I was reading the books, and then a lot of books weren't hitting for me.
Yeah.
Because for someone who's very logical and like science-based, I need studies in my self-help books to tell me, okay, this is the concept, this is how,
That makes
this
sense,
is like research and different studies that prove this, and then here are a bunch of different people who have quotes on the subject, and then also their experience and how they brought the practice into their life and applied it to their situation. So like in terms of visualization, they talk about golfers and how they visualize the shot and how they want it to go, and then they're just like letting the club do the work for them, basically. But golf is a very big visualization game.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, rather than just being like, you have to align your spirit and your body, like how would you even know how to do that?
Yeah.
In terms of like you just opening the door and first like initial introduction into spirituality.
Yeah.
There's no way, and there's so many lofty books about that, and it just seems so pompous.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I do own a couple of those books, but I never finished them because now, like, I can immediately tell that it's not that they're full of shit, but it's like, I'm glad that and a lot of them is tooting their own horn. I'm glad that they found enlightenment, but like, you're elevating it to a point to where it seems unattainable.
I can see that. Yeah.
And it's not grounded in anything.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the feelings of lack of control and like dealing with outcomes that don't go how you wanted them to go or how you envision them to go?
Oh,
so
that's a good one.
Dealing with uncertainty, I guess. How do you deal with uncertainty?
I think I had a really, really hard time with that. Like, I had a hard time with that before just because, like, going back on, like, how particular of a person I am and, like, I want things to be perfect and go a certain way. And, obviously life is not like that. What?
I got nothing to say. Continue.
Oh. Obviously life is not like that. And I don't know. I've slowly just been trying to tell myself that like it's okay and like everything's like part of the process. And it's such a hard thing to accept, to be honest. Like, what process? Like, what are you talking about? Because there's nothing like definite about it. But I think that's also just the thrill in everything too. Like, you don't know what's gonna happen, but maneuvering through like each obstacle or like thing that doesn't go your way, it's all a part of living and experiencing. Honestly, when I feel like I don't have control of my life or a grasp on things, I clean. Like, I literally just clean the house and like,
yeah.
I think grasping control on like one aspect of my life helps me feel a little bit more at ease, and like it preps me to be kind of ready to like navigate the rest, because I'm like, okay, I got this one task done, so like, okay, let's work on the rest now,
I have this one quote that I remind myself of like maybe 5+ times a day for sure. Andy Petery: find solace in the fortitude of your integrity and focus on those things you can't control. Right? So finding the comfort in the value that you place in yourself and your morals, and then focusing on your circle of influence. So for you, that would definitely be cleaning. For me, it's like music and my creative projects. And it's just like, that applies to everything.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy in terms of like relationships, interpersonal relationships. You place so much value in like your expectations of the other people.
Yes.
What you think that how things should be, right? And then it doesn't go your way, and you take that personally. And people doing you wrong, or even not doing you wrong, even just letting you down in your expectation of them, I think it's twofold, because I think some people like do you wrong, obviously.
Yeah.
But then you can't take that personally, because it's more of a reflection of who they are than who you are, and it doesn't devalue you.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then in terms of like you establishing expectations that they don't know about, that's not fair to either of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's where another quote comes in. Clarity is kindness. Right? And I think about that every single day. Clarity is kindness. Like, how is the other person supposed to know what you expect from them if it's not shared? And so it's, even if you're over communicating, I love to over communicate, because it's like, then nothing is lost in translation and nothing is taken a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the kindest thing that you can do, and you can figure out what makes sense. And if you have an open conversation, then you are able to understand the other person's perspective instead of just like in your head, your perception of them changes because you expect this,
Yeah.
and this, and they don't do it because they have no idea it exists.
Yeah, very true, very true. That's very true.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that I like really had to like learn about this year. Not even like on a relationship level, but like just on a friendship level. Me and my best friend were very different. And I think sometimes because I'm a particular person, I'm always like, oh, like if you do things this way, it'll be easier, more effective, whatever, right? And most of the times or sometimes like people don't have that same perspective, and I was headbutting, not like literally, but like I was butting heads.
You're literally headbutting.
I was butting heads with like my best friend, because like there was just a point where I was like, bro, none of this shit makes sense. Like, what are you doing? I just had to realize that some people do things differently, and even though I might not think it's the wrong way, or maybe like things don't work out in their favor in that route, like people have to experience things to grab their own perspective on things, you know, like
Yeah.
not everyone's gonna listen to like a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
And that's completely fine. And I think me letting go of like my need for control in that aspect of things, like in my friendships and stuff and relationships and whatever it may be, that was like a groundbreaking thing for me. I was like, okay, like you gotta let things, or like let people experience things on their own accord, because that's what I'm doing too, you know, like figuring it out, and that's totally fine. Like there's no reason to feel a certain way about how someone else is living their life. It's like
Exactly.
has no correlation to you, even though you might feel like connected to them or responsible in some aspects, you know.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something that I like learned about this year.